Before we begin this episode of the podcast, as most of you will be aware, during the course of the week, last week, Diego Jota and his brother Andre were involved in a horrific freak car accident in Spain where a tyre blew out the car, spun off the road, and was in flames, and they were both dead before they knew it. As we do every time there's a loss in both football or both personally to one of us, we're going to take a minute silence just to reflect upon that loss. Not just a loss for the footballing world, not just a loss for Liverpool or for Wolves, but a loss for a truly fantastic person. So just take this moment in silence with us to think about not only the person and the player that was lost, but those that we've lost ourselves, those that aren't with us here today, those that weren't with us to celebrate the Europa League win, maybe in Liverpool's case to celebrate the Premier League win, or just to be there, just family and friends that we've lost along the way. Please take a minute of self-reflection to think about those people, as well as thinking about making the most of the opportunity of those that we have still got here with us. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for that. Our thoughts go out to everybody associated with Liverpool, with Wolves, and all the clubs he's paid for, as well as his wife and his children, his close friends, his family. It's absolutely heartbreaking. So our thoughts go out to those people. It's going to be an extremely difficult time, especially for Liverpool in the coming season, for those players to have to pick themselves up and go again, knowing that they've not just lost a teammate, they've not just lost a friend, they've lost someone that they consider family. You know, unfortunately, I've been in that position before, and it's a horrible position to be in. So our thoughts go out to them ahead of the new season. I'm joined by Harry this week. Again, Harry, how you doing?
Yeah, I am okay. Yeah, it wasn't the best news to hear the other day.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. And it is a shame to start on a damper, but you guys know obviously that it's something that we take seriously. It's something that we do. You know, when it comes to losses, not just with football, with friends, with family as well. So, you know, luckily it's been a while since we've had that. But it's just our way of showing that respect. Before we get into the topic of this week's conversation, which we're going to talk about transfer window, people have asked me to talk about the situation with a certain now named 30-year-old, now former Arsenal player. I will not be discussing that on the podcast. I'll discuss my opinion at length on a 10 plus minute long TikTok video. I'll not be talking about that today because it's a Tottenham podcast and we don't talk about animals on a Tottenham podcast. So please go and check out that video if you want to know my opinion. If you want to see Harry's opinion, I'm sure you can check his Twitter and you'll find something on there. But as for discussing it in depth on this podcast, that will not be happening today. So if you come to this episode to hear about that, please turn it off. Don't turn it off. Carry on watching anyway, but don't expect us to talk about that because we won't be. And on the topic of what we will be talking about, we are going to be talking about Mohammed Kudus and the Tottenham Hotspur transfer window. So, as of, we're currently recording this at 4 o'clock on Sunday.
6th of July. Yeah.
4 o'clock on Sunday, yeah. Let me go and see the last The last tweet by Fabrizio Lamano. As of 2 hours ago, understand Mohammed Kudus is not talking to any other club at this stage. He wants a Tottenham move. Kudus said yes to the Spurs project, so the club talks with West Ham will continue soon. Clear intention is to join Spurs, and only Spurs and Chelsea are made aware of this. So, first of all, that's a bit positive because we actually recorded next week's episode, which is another quiz, this morning, and we hadn't had that level of clarity yet. So having that level of clarity now kind of makes our job a bit easier talking about it. Obviously, it's very clear we needed a right winger. Now, that's not to say that I don't appreciate what Brennan Johnson's done last season. We had a whole segment at the end of the year talking about how he shocked us both and he really became so important, and history will look fondly on him about the way he handled, his own sort of internal self-doubt and the feedback from fans and, taking himself away from it all, and then the goal in the Coventry game and how important that was and the level that he built from last season upon that. We both said it at the end of last season that he was such an important player, even though he wasn't necessarily like the ability level of a world beater, he was really effective last season. And we both spoke at length when we did the episode talking about Thomas Frank about the fact that we think if we used more of like almost kind of like a second striker, or a more advanced striker, kind of pace man, if you like, if we play a back three, which we expect Frank to do against teams that we're going to sit deeper against. And that then leaves that hole on the right wing. You kind of have Mikey Moore, Son, Tell on the left, and with me and Harry spoke about it earlier, but we think Tell and Son are going to be more like inside forwards. They're going to be closer to the striker, as Brentford have played over the years under Thomas Frank. Tony, Burmo, Visser all come to mind in that. Kevin Shard as well. And then you've got Mikey Moore, who's more like your natural winger option. Again, on the right-hand side, you've got, if Kulusevski does play out on the right, which I think he will on occasion, and Brendan Johnson, they'll be closer to the striker. They'll be less of a creator. You kind of got you've got inside forwards on each side, and you've got a more natural winger, all right, be it quite young, you've got a more natural winger in Mikey Moore on the left. You don't really have that option on the right, and therefore we have a bit of a void, right? I want to talk about other voids in a second, but we'll just focus on the right wing for now. And he wants someone that can cut in, that's good passing range, that's quick, that's energetic, that's exciting, that will get you off your feet. And Mohammed Kudus is that player on his best day. Now, do I have concerns about his level of consistency? And do I have concerns about maybe him not necessarily stepping up to be a leader or to lead by example when it went rough for West Ham last year? Absolutely. That being said, the kind of person Thomas Frank is, the kind of character Thomas Frank is, do I think he will drag the best out of him if we do sign him? Absolutely. And it seems like Thomas Frank came with a list for that right side, and he had two choices. It was Brian Mbeumo and Mohammed Kudus. And as much as you can sit there and say, in the past Spurs haven't paid the money for a player, it's clear that we were going to pay what it takes for Mbeumo, and Mbeumo simply chose United. Nothing you can do about that. As much as I hate him, that's not on Daniel Levy, that's not on the manager, that's not on whatever. That's Mbeumo's decision. We've now gone for the next choice option that could still cost in and around the same amount of money. And it looks like we are going to throw everything at that option, which I think is a good sign that a manager's come in, gone, right, these are my clear identity targets. This is what I need. And we're actually going to go for one of his first two options. And I know people sit there and say, Spurs always go for the second option. That's well and good. And that argument is valid when there's a 50, 60 million pound valuation difference between the first choice and the second choice. In this case, they're not. They're going to cost identically. For you, I know obviously you've been a massive critic of Spurs not going for first choice targets in the past. Would you agree that it's kind of been out of the club's control with Mbeumo, and he's made that decision himself? He wants United, clear as day. And actually, if we do sign Mohammed Kudus, if we do spend 65, 70 million on him, it does show an element of backing the manager with one of his primary targets, which is a good way to start Thomas Frank's reign.
I think once I heard Mbeumo was either going to go to United or stay at Brentford, it was basically off the cards anyway. So whilst it was a great idea, because obviously he played under Frank, and I think he would have just slotted straight in. Kudus was obviously like this. Maybe he was the third choice, but like, at least we didn't go from A to Z. So it's not like we went from Mane to Nkudu back in the day. So at least we went from like A to B or C basically, which is a lot better. So at least Kudus could be trained, or is that the right way to explain it? Trained or coached into playing the
Yeah.
same way when Bremer was basically, right. My reservations with Kudus is, I mean, some people say his attitude's not great. I don't know because I don't support West Ham. I don't know him that well. I've only watched Kudus a lot in this first season. The second season, I'm not as much, mainly because I West Ham weren't doing very well, so I just didn't really tune into their games. Um, but the thing with him is, I think he'll use him in like so many different ways. He can either play him either wing. He's played either wing at West Ham in a 4-3-3 or whatever 4-2-3-1 we will call it nowadays. I even think, because I was speaking about this earlier today, that I think he might even use him as a second striker if he plays a 3-5-2, because the way he used Vista and Buemo, they weren't really strikers before he did that 3-5-2 with them two together, because he had Tony before, remember? So
Yeah.
he adapted to the situation. He said he's going to push his wingers or slash forwards further in to count and get them to get the goals together rather than just focus on one player getting the goals to counteract the loss of Tony at the time. So he could use them in many different ways. My issue with those transfers is more the fact that, I mean, I didn't really want to tell, but I don't know how much of a first teamer he's going to be next season, because if Son's staying now, yeah, it's up for grabs now. I don't know what's going to happen with that position on the over on the left or inside forward on the left, whatever. That's going to be quite interesting, because I think Kudus will occupy more on the right regardless. So who in him or Johnson, or him or in some cases maybe Kulusevski, like you mentioned, maybe the odd occasion, but I still think he views Kulusevski and Madison as more central players. I don't think that he'll play him that often on the right. But a lot, I think, depends with formations and choices. So for me, it's more like, it's not the issue of just signing Kudus. Like, I'd want him to come, and I think he could do well for us. But like you said, consistency is an issue. So can he reinvent and become like the player he was 2 seasons ago when Man City were even linked with him that summer afterwards? Because he scored that great bicycle kick, remember, in the last day, if you remember it. Like, he was like on fire then. Whether we can get that player again, or somewhat that percentage of that high percentage of that player, like 80% of what he was back then, because he was still quite fresh. It was his first season, and no one really knew what he was going to do. So maybe that was to his advantage. But for me, it's like, we did Kudus done, cool, but we need to get another two or three players of this level, sorry,
Yeah.
to go into the first
We'll,
team,
we'll,
right?
we'll, we'll talk about other positions in a second. The one thing
Yeah.
I've just looked at actually is on the 11th of August, Mbermo turns 26. And on the 2nd of August, Kudus turns 25. So we've got 11 and a half months age gap between the two of them, which I would be inclined to say, spending 65, 70 million pounds on a player, it's a little bit younger, got a lot more room for growth. Not necessarily a lot more growth. I think on Burmo last season, that's probably the best he's going to be. And he might
Mm-hmm.
continue to be at that level at United, but I don't think he's going to excel. Whereas I think with Kudus, I think his ceiling is probably higher than what he's shown so far, even in his best moments at West Ham. And I think that's one thing that I'm quite looking forward to. Um,
The thing
I
is, though, I
think,
think we need to realise, and I think it kind of applies to United as well, because they were going from Mbeumo, is we're not going to go out and sign, unfortunately, even though we're in the Champions League. We did finish 17th, but we're not going to go out and sign the really, really high level players. We've never really done that. So we're going to have to sign good players, quotation marks, who we know is
and make them
I
into
mean, in
great
my opinion, our
players.
best route, who we know is going to go in and make an impact straight away. And then maybe if we get to another level where we won under Pochettino consistently, then maybe we could entice. Like, I hate to use this example, so I had to use this example, but like a Declan Rice to Tottenham, right?
Yeah,
Because
that
that's
level of
kind of,
player.
that. But until then, our best chances ever went to sign two or three, maybe ideally three players of the 60, 70 million mark, who we know will come in and make a difference straight away. Not just be like a bench player, like, just come in and do a difference straight away.
Yeah. The one thing I would say that's interesting, I was having a conversation with someone the other day actually, and I wouldn't say that Jan Vertonghen or Toby Alderweireld were quite world class individually, but they were a world class partnership. In the same way, I don't think Brian and Burmo and Wissa are world class players, But the form, not ability, form from last season, they were a world-class combination, right? The level of goals at Brentford, they were a world-class combination. I truly believe that if Tell builds up that confidence and fitness and plays inside forward, plays right up close to Solanke, and we have Kudus the same creating on the other side, we can have a world-class performing attack in terms of numbers, not world-class individuals, but an attack that's performing to a world-class level. And I think for me, Thomas Frank's the right kind of manager to bring that level of efficiency out in attacking players. And it's clear that right wing's a void, right? So for me, if we're willing to spend the same on him as what we're willing to spend on Mbermo, then for me, Thomas Frank clearly has a plan. And, you know, we both said he was our first choice. We both said that he's the manager we wanted for where Spurs are and where Spurs want to be. So we have to have faith that he knows what he's doing and he's going to get the
That's
best out
not
of
my
it.
issue. My issue is more. Best I'm trying to say is I think we need to realistically just know where we are as a club. Like we're not going to sign. Andrew openly said this last season. We're not going to sign like a Declan Rice type player, at least not at this
No,
moment.
not at this
So
moment, no.
our best chance is to buy three £70 million players, just as an example, off the top of my head.
Yeah.
We know will come in every season, do an impact, and then it might drop one of the two of them back to
I
the
think it's
bench.
also about being smart in the transfer market. So, for example, there's strong links with Basuma and Juventus, and there's talks of a swap deal with Douglas Luiz.
Luiz.
I think that's a smart move. He's
Yeah.
experienced, he's mature, he's Premier League proven, he's quite strong, he's good pass with the ball, good energy, good physicality, relatively good injury record. I think he will be a player that would be a brilliant fit for Tottenham.
Walk into our team.
Yeah, exactly. And I think then all of a sudden, if you have him and Bergval, or you have him and Archie Gray, and then you have Kudus on the right, Tell on the left, but he's not really on the left. He's tucked right up close to Solanke. I feel like we Kulusevski or Madison in midfield. I feel like position by position, we've got a lot of depth generally. For me, my three main priority targets to the right wing, which we're looking at Mohammed Kudus, is a six. He plays with a more natural six. So I think someone like a Douglas Luiz swap deal or Paulinho has been linked strongly. Maybe I'm a little bit worried about Paulinho's legs, which is why I'd potentially go for a swap deal Douglas Luiz for Basuma, but I think either of those are a valid option. There's also a guy called Stiller, I believe, German guy for Stuttgart, who's like 23. He looks about 45. He's been linked a lot with Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. He was in Bayern Munich's academy. Right now, they're not putting offers in for him. He's someone I'd like us to test the waters with. So that kind of covers the sixth role. Back up left wing back. I was talking to a guy on Twitter this morning. He was saying about getting Kyle Walker-Peters in and then playing Spence on the left. As long as Porro was one of the most minutes played last season in the Premier League, so you don't have to worry about always rotating him.
The Walker-Peters one is a necessity because they need to have a club trained player. So they're going to have to either sign him or Edwards or because someone sent in a group chat I'm in wrote a list, but he had a list he must have got from an article or something of current players playing in the world basically who are club trained from Tottenham Hotspur. And because they let Whiteman go, they need to bring in someone in. And the logical one is Walker-Peters because he'll be on a free. He's English as well, I guess. And he'd be the cheapest one to do, really. I mean, unless you're going to sign Edwards and have another attacker there, which I think is probably not a good idea. And Madueke, we're not going to get him.
He's going to Arsenal.
Yeah, so Walker-Peters, I think, whether we like it or not, is going to come in to play on the fullback. I don't know how many games he'll play. I don't know how many games he'll play, but yeah.
And then I think at that point, then you've kind of got pretty much depth everywhere. And then people sitting there saying, "Oh, we want to make I want you to make like 5 or 6 signings." I would only make those 3: the right wing, the 6, and the backup left back, until he's had a full pre-season or until players leave. Obviously, Richarlison leaves, bring up a backup striker. A centre mid leaves, then bring in a rotation option. Centre back leaves if you don't feel you've got enough. But I feel like we've got an abundance of centre backs now. Then bring somebody in, but. As for the core face value of this squad, we've got actually a fair bit of rotation now. Luka Vescovic is training at Hotspur way at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't get a loan next season and if he plays. And Thomas Frank's style, not as much of a high line, I think will benefit him a lot. His height, his physicality, we saw how many goals he scored last year. People can sit there and say, oh, it was Belgium. But listen, the guy was like in the air so high, like you wouldn't believe. Like for me, there's a real opportunity for him to get some minutes. Obviously, Kevin Danso had a phenomenal, first 6 months at Spurs, for first 5-6 months at Spurs. So in terms of depth, I don't think we need more than 3 signings unless there's outgoings. And then get into the new season, have a bit of a feel about what you want to do, look at contracts in January, sell people that need to go for their contracts, sign people that you need to bring in. We'll probably do a fair bit of business in January, I'd imagine. And I think that's the biggest approach to take. My question to you is, how many signings do you realistically think we'll make? And if we make Kudus, if we make an experienced 6, and if we make a backup left back, given the volume of players we've currently got, do you think initially for a very first transfer window that's enough? And then see if we don't sell anyone. Let's say Basuma stays, Richarlison stays, or let's say Basuma goes in the swap deal with Douglas Luiz. Bring Douglas Luiz in, bring Kudus in, bring Walker Peters in. We don't sell anybody else apart from Manuel Solomon and Brian Hill, who aren't going to play anyway. Don't sign
I
anyone,
heard
don't sell
someone might
anyone.
be staying now. Anyway.
Yeah, I hope not. Let's say we don't sign or sell anyone from that point. Sorry. Would you say that that's enough given the level of the amount of players we've got, and then it's time for Thomas Frank to get through the season, filter through the squad, work out who he wants to keep, who he wants to get rid of in the long term, and then next summer you go and plug the bigger holes, rather than going and signing too many players in the first year that you don't necessarily need before he's had a chance to truly gauge how effective certain players could be.
I mean, do you think he should know most of these players from before, though? Like when he was, because he's obviously.
I don't think he's had enough time with this squad, or will have had enough time with the squad before
they
the
come
end of
up
the
for
transfer
pre-season,
window.
I think next week, right? It's the next week.
Well, most of them, a lot of them are back now, but I don't think Thomas Frank doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to force anyone out at the start. He strikes me as the kind of guy who's going to give people an opportunity to prove themselves, and then if they prove themselves, then cool. Like, for example, Richarlison. Let's say Richarlison stays fit and scores 25 goals in all comps next season. We'd be stupid to sell him.
Yeah.
So I think you have to, with a lot of managers, I would say maybe certain players you just kind of have on the chopping block from the off. But I feel like because of how effective Thomas Frank is offensively, I feel like we're at the point where it's just too early to judge at this stage.
The thing is, I'd rather we made, like, say we got Louise Peters, because we have to get him, Kudus, and I guess Louise would be our 6, right?
Yeah.
And we've got these, Tell, and I'd probably want just one more first team player, but I just don't know
what position. See, that's the thing. If you can't say what position, then I feel like maybe it's a little bit. Maybe you just have to wait on it.
Maybe
you
not.
Know what I mean, like if there was a clear and obvious, I think he will look to do well with Odobert, and I think Odobert does fit the way Thomas Frank plays. I think he clearly has a plan for Tell. It's clear, otherwise he wouldn't have signed him. And Son, again, like, we'll be waiting for a long-term option. You've then got Min Hyuk in there as well, who, again, with his physicality, I don't think he's level ready for the Premier League, but definitely his body type and his physicality is. So maybe he'll give him a run out in pre-season, who knows? Striking options. I think Lancashire will go off on a loan.
Oh,
and I think Scarlett will probably stay. So then you've got Richarlison, Scarlett, and Solanke. On the right, you've got Johnson, you've got Kudus if we sign him. Obviously, we haven't spoken about Mikey Moore yet either. So I feel like there's so many attacking numbers that we'd have to sell players. And not sell players to buy financially, but sell players to buy because we don't have the space.
But do you still think, say Louise comes in, Oh no, Basuma will go that way because if it's a swap deal, he's going to go anyway. What am I thinking? I keep thinking Basuma's an extra man in there anyway. But
No. So that
but
gives you the numbers then,
I
because
think
you've
some of
got
it also depends on like Archie Gray partly because like obviously as you know I'm not a big fan of Archie
yeah.
Gray, but Frank did want him at
He
Brentford
was
and
he
he
was
was wanting
Brentford's first
Johnson.
choice transfer
So
target last
maybe
year.
he has some sort of plan I've not seen. So
And the other thing I will say
but
about Archie Gray is if he'd have got him last year, he would have been Brentford's most expensive signing in their history. So he was prepared to shatter Brentford's transfer record for him. So for me, I think the depth in midfield would be, let's say, for example, the new six and Gray and Bentancur, Gray and Bergval. Who else am I missing in there?
I
I'm
think
sure
you know
there's
what it is
one.
because I'm worried about a left wing side.
I am, but I think it's not going to be a winger the way we think it's going to be. I think it's going to be more like a forward. They're going to be playing off Solanke. I wouldn't be surprised if our front three starts next season as Johnson on the left, Solanke and Kudus,
Kudus.
and Johnson's right up close to Solanke with the Dogi creating the width on that left hand
And
side.
then Dogi and Poro play wider, and then
Yeah.
the midfielders tuck in, I guess, a bit more because
Bearing in mind for our midfield, so we've got, let's say we have, like the two tens, we've got Madison and Kuzeski with the option
yeah,
to play Bergval there, and also I think the option to play Odobert there as well. I think
I
I've
think
seen
even
enough of
Kudus has
Odobert
played
when
there
he
before
plays
as well.
centrally.
I think Kudus has
Yeah,
played there before as
exactly.
well.
He has, yeah. Then you'd have Bentancur and let's say Douglas Luiz in this case as your sitting midfielders. On the left side, your engines, you'd have Bergval, you'd have Sarr. Alfie Devine, I think, is probably going to go on load. Maybe you do need one more sort of engine midfielder, but again, you can't play all of them in one game. So let's say you're starting with Gray and Sarr, then you've got the option to bring on Bentancur, you've got the option to bring on Douglas Luiz. And Douglas Luiz can play both of those midfield roles as well. So maybe if you want to be a bit more conservative in the game, then maybe you play Bentancur and Douglas Luiz together, or Bentancur Paulinho together, or Bentancur and Stella together, one of those more defensive options. So maybe we don't need another central midfielder. We've kind of got two for each side at that point, so maybe we don't need another one. Valise is going to go. I think Brian Hill will go. Manuel Solomon will go. Manchuk will go out on loan. That still leaves us with more Odobert, Tell, and Son for the left. Johnson, Solanke, Tell for the middle, and Richarlison, and then potentially Mohammed Kudus, Brennan Johnson, Odobert on the right. Maybe I think we'll just about be okay. I feel like I do get what you're saying. I think maybe we'd have to have Brian Hill, Manuel Solomon, and one other
To go,
leave on the attack to
yeah.
warrant signing another one.
Yeah, I just worry about.
But other than
I know
that,
they're
I
going to play
think
it inside forwards. Like we have to, if we
yeah,
assume that, but I still worry about the left because I don't know. Just say if Richarlison stays, right? If Richarlison, Son can potentially play in there, I guess. If Scarlett or Lancashire stay, that's just like with a third, fourth choice anyway. And obviously, Solanke's
yeah.
going to be first choice regardless. I don't see us go out as much as I want us to go out and sign some top striker. We won't.
I
We
think
just
there's
won't.
more to come from him as well next season.
We just won't. So
Yeah.
then I'm looking to other areas of the attack. Like ideally I kind of want to sign someone who can play on the left but can also play a bit inside. I don't know, like in the
But I think
tens as
that's how
well.
we're gonna kind of play Odobert. And like I say, I know in my opinion, I don't think we've seen a lot from him, but from what I've seen from him, and I know you don't necessarily rate the internationals, but what I've seen from him internationally, he's played on the right wing and Tell's played through the middle, and they've been phenomenal. Now, if we can emulate that level of link up in Thomas Frank's style, it could be insane. It could be insane.
So do you
And
think
this is where
he's
I
going to
talk
stick with
about.
a 4-3-3 and just push the forwards and
No,
inside
I think
forwards
it'll be a
and
four.
play
I think it'll
the
be a
full
four.
backs as like
No,
basically
I think it'll
Poch
be a
ball,
4-2-3-1.
basically
I think
no,
it'll be a
basically
where's my
Poch ball. That's
whiteboard?
basically Poch ball, right? Because
Kind of, yeah, in a
yeah.
way, yeah. Which I actually think is why we might get another good year out of Son, because when you have him pushed right in centrally, he's fine. When you ask him to run down the wing and beat on his
Yeah,
man,
no,
it's not going to
exactly.
happen.
Yeah.
When we look
But
at
I still
central
think
defenders,
from what I've heard and I've read, because remember we saw that they said they'd hold Son, you can stay if you want to, but if a good
If
offer
you want
comes
to go,
in,
we'll
we'll
let
let
you
you go or
go.
something
Yeah.
like this. He said he's going to stay. Probably because he doesn't want to go to Saudi and something like that. But he probably knows
I
his
think it's
minutes will
less
be
about
limited.
that.
His minutes will be
I
limited,
think
which is why I say about the left hand side that I want someone, because I don't mind using Son as like a starter for some cup games and like a bench player in the league. We can bring him for half an
yeah.
hour or 20 minutes. He can do some
But do you
damage,
not
right?
think? Do you
But
not think now this is an opportunity to give Mikey Moore a chance to prove that he can be Son's long-term successor?
yes and no. It's a tough one, really. I think if we didn't sign Tell, I'd be like, Moore's got more of a chance. But now we signed Tell on a perm. I'm worried about Mikey Moore's future, to be honest. Like, I don't know where he's going to play. I don't know what if Frank has plans for him, because I don't know, you know. And then because we also have Odobert, even though he can play on the right, he can also play on the left.
Okay,
Um, and Tell can play all across the front if I believe what I believe
yeah,
from
you
what
can.
I've
Yeah.
heard. So it means that Moore for me is a stronger position is off the left. So
I think the thing that makes it interesting is, apart from Dominic Solanke and maybe Kudus if we sign him, those attacking roles aren't guaranteed. So I
it
think
can
it gives
be,
every
yeah, it
single
can
one of
be.
those players an opportunity to show. I mean, Odobert popped up with some really key goals in the Europa League last year. People forget we talk about his injury crisis. He came back from injury, and that first game, was it Frankfurt at home? He blitzed them down that left hand side. So there's definitely a player in there. It's just about how efficient can he be in the final third. Well, there's more talent now in Odobert than there was of Brian and Burma at the same age when Brentford signed him. So
I don't know about that because I'll have to look back.
he
But
was signed
my
from a
worry is
second
because
division
we're
League
playing
One
Champions
team, and I
League
think the most
because we're playing
goals he'd
Champions League
had in one
football, right?
season.
Because we're playing Champions League
Yeah,
football, right? I still think we need like a higher level player on that side. I know Son might play some of the games, but it's just my worry is if we chuck all our faith in Odobert, Tell, and Mikey Moore, as much as I just told you, I'd rather see him get minutes, right? But
yeah,
and Son, I don't think he'll be ready to play like every Champions League game, right? I don't think he can do it. Like, I still think we need, even though we have a ton of left wingers, if you want to include Sonman, like a ton of them. Like, I don't think any of them are really like that level. We're not talking about the Son of 2018 or 2019. We're talking
yeah,
about 2025, right? And as much as these players have a lot of potential, I just worry about us because we're going to be in the Champions League. If we weren't in the Champions League, say this was like Ange's first season, I'd be like, cool, I can ride this out for a year because we won't be playing that high level opposition like on a regular basis. So we've got 8 Champions League
yeah,
games. So my worry is on that side. And if you're telling me Richarlison's staying and you've got Son there, I'm happy for them to cover in the middle even Son can even play in the middle every so often, especially if we play a 3-5-2 every so like if he does that sometimes. It's like okay, we'll give him one more year, I guess. And we go get Kudus on the right. I still think maybe we need a left winger.
yeah.
I just worry about that side a lot. Like I really do.
I think it's going to be an interesting one. I don't think there's an obvious answer right now. I'm not going to lie to you. I think we really need to kind of get Kudus in the door, get the six situation dealt with, and we're going to re-sign Kyle Walker Peters, get Kyle Walker Peters
And that's a
resorted,
free transfer,
and then
so
and
it
then
shouldn't be
sit
a
there and
problem.
look at our options. I would strongly consider Jack Grealish, not on 300 grand a week. I'd want him to fit in line with not with in line with the top earner for the club, not the highest paid. Um, Other than that, I don't think there's any real clear options. This is where I would be inclined to say, and people are going to hate me for this. I would be inclined to say if you can get him on loan and not on 450 grand a week, get Marcus Rashford on loan. My reason being, 2 reasons, really. Number one is he was actually quite good for Aston Villa last year,
Yeah, he was.
and
Yeah,
he
he was.
almost played like an inside forward. Number two, well, more than 2 reasons. Number two, he's got a lot of pace, which Frank likes up front. Number three, if it doesn't work out, it's just cost you salary. It's not a permanent signing. Number four is, let's say you play Tell, and Tell and Solanke had this brilliant link up, and Tell scoring goal after goal after goal, ends the season on 28 goals in all comps. plus a range of assists, then you don't need to sign Rashford anymore. You can let Son
You can
go,
just
go and sign someone to be a second, and you haven't got to worry. But if it does go to shit and Tell isn't up to scratch, then you've got a Premier League proven left winger. So for me, if you were talking about right now, well, I think the absolute perfect transfer window for us would be perfect, realistic. Kudus in, Basuma out, Douglas Luiz swap. I really like Douglas Luiz. Rashford on loan with an option to buy, and Kyle Walker-Peters on a free transfer.
And then
anyone that leaves is subject. Let's say Richarlison leaves,
Romero,
and you look at
yeah.
I think that
We're
would
gonna
be because people have got to understand. People got to understand that the manager's just coming into a team, not just a team, but a winning team. And this is, I guess, it's kind of working to our disadvantage in a way. Slightly is in previous years when we'd have a new manager come in, it was clear and obvious who needed to go and who needed to stay. Right, so you could literally have a gut job, and no one would go, "Oh, he deserves to stay. He deserves to go." Like it was always pretty unanimous among the fan base, right? Now that we've won, like even you compare it to Richarlison last season, I was very much a likable guy, work rate off the charts, but not quite good enough for us. Now I sit there and think, hold on a second, we're completely gutting our fitness team and our injury team. Thomas Frank's team in Brentford weren't. I've never been riddled with injuries. He's always been quite smart. I look at the sheer determination and fight and drive he had against Man United in that final. When we talk about, and we've spoken about it at length, players that will die for the badge. He's one of those characters, and I just feel as though if he can stay fit under Thomas Frank, where it's not as intense, it's not as high pressure, it's not as injury creating style of football, having someone like him laying the ball off to a Matthias Tell, having someone like him being played like down the wing by Mohammed Kudus, I think could be even played down the wing by Son. Talk about Son's lack of pace. We said this a couple of years ago. His passing and his shooting ability hasn't disappeared. So having Son play a ball, between two defenders for Richarlison to run onto, lays the ball off. You've got Kulusevski running, or Madison running, or Kudus coming in, or Johnson coming in. I can see that working, and that's why I'm not hell-bent on we need to sell Richarlison the way I was before, is because I want to give Frank an opportunity. Frank likes him. So I want to give Thomas Frank an opportunity to see what he can get out of it. If we sell him, then fine, cool, let's go and get a replacement. But if the manager wants to keep him and the player wants to stay, for me, the way he played in that final, and people sit there and say, oh, yeah, but you can't judge people off one game. But Richarlison's work rate has always been great at Spurs. Always been great at Spurs. I mean, when the first game we ever went to together, the Marseille game, he no matter what, they were defending deep, and he was playing off the shoulder of defenders constantly, and he peeled away from one defender to nod it across to the far side. Similar cross again, a little bit deeper. Again, he's peeled off the back of the defender to score. And I think that could be so effective, especially you look at the way Thomas Frank's team's counter-attack. If you've got a Dogie or Porro more specifically, we're winning the ball, cool. We can play the ball down the line, Johnson's run down the line, or whoever's run down the line, and Porro bends one in, round sort of the back of the defender. There's very few players you'd want in this current Spurs team running onto that ball more than Richarlison, because he's not going to stop till he's won the ball. And then you've got options where you can lay it off, like we did with where Solanke laid it off to Bergvall against Liverpool in the League Cup first leg, and we scored. And I see us playing like that a lot under Thomas Frank. And for me, I think he could be an asset in that regard. So where it might have been so easy in the past to completely dismiss a player, now I'm sort of sitting there and saying, well, actually, if the manager can keep him fit, the manager wants to keep him, the player wants to stay, give it 12 months and see what happens. So I think we've sort of established, a lone option, a lone attacker, Mohammed Kudus, a 6 and a left back, and I think that's pretty much a set for the season.
Assuming no one goes, of course.
So
if Romero goes, then obviously we need to buy someone.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
But I don't know
this
about
is why
I don't know what's going on.
It looks like we're going to hold him
for another year. Yeah.
For another year, yeah.
It looks like it.
Man United are making a move for Calvert-Lewin, which is interesting.
Calvert Lewin.
Yeah, Calvert-Lewin. Yeah,
You say Calvert Lewin?
Calvert-Lewin. I did say Calvert-Lewin. Yeah.
Wow, what an interesting move by United.
United are trying to get relegated this season. But yeah, so I think that's the best place to go, really. Obviously, we normally do our
3 words.
3 words.
3 words.
We haven't done it. We obviously we haven't done it for the quiz episode, so we haven't done it for like 2 weeks. We haven't done it since Jack. So, 3 words for how you're feeling about the potential signing of Mohammed Kudus.
I'm excited. Pace and unpredictability. Unpredictable.
Okay, all right. I like unpredictable. Yeah, I like that. I like that actually. Yeah, okay, I like that. I'm gonna go with need. I'm going to go with necessity. I think Raul is a necessity. I'm going to go with funny because it's going to piss West Ham fans off. And I'm going to go with energetic. I think what he brings, the energy he brings on his best day, I think that's kind of the kind of profile we've needed for a while. We've not had since Son in his best days, or maybe Aaron Lennon before that. So yeah, I think that's the way to go. I think that's about it, really. Not really a lot more to talk about transfer-wise, and I'm kind of glad that we've kind of broken up the transfer stuff. Next week, as you guys are watching this, will be the quiz part 2, which we recorded this morning. And the week after that will be Premier League predictions, and I know who we're going to get on for that. I know who I want to get on for that. I'm going to message him shortly. So hopefully we can get them on. After that will be the quiz part 3. Then it will be the Super Cup preview, and then it will literally be the start of the Premier League season, which has come around really quickly, actually, when you think about it. So, thank you guys so much for...
A month away. 5 weeks away. Is it 5 weeks? Something like that.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, it's crazy. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review. Follow the podcast TikTok as well, posting clips on there every single week. I need to do some like behind the scenes stuff. I might record some when I do the editing for this. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Have a wonderful time. Look after yourselves. Stay safe. Drive safely if you drive. And most importantly, look out for your friends. Look out for your family. Make the most of those opportunities that you get, because you never know when the last one is going to be. Thank you guys so much, and we'll catch you next week. Come on, you Spurs!
Come on, you Spurs!